How have you been? How's the weather over in California?
Oh, beautiful, of course, so can't complain with that.
Chriselle Almeida.
All right, so let's get to the star of the moment, which is you. I'm very excited to hear what you're going to contribute. So, as you know, I've been talking to mostly former students, and now I'm trying to expand on what you wish you would have learned in school that either you touched on and didn't get to dive into very deeply, or something you didn't get to talk about at all and you really think would benefit kids today to have learned to learn about it.
I actually had a very similar conversation at my alumni association. I went to the University of Connecticut for undergrad, where I studied acting. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts.
Yep.
So, it was a very performance driven school. You took a lot of performance classes, and all that was wonderful, because if you're going to go into the arts, you want to have the skills to actually compete. Right. So you want to have the voice, the diction, the movement, scene study, all of that stuff. But what was missing, and I keep saying if I could go back and teach a class myself, I would teach a class called The Business of Acting, which is about the nitty gritties that they don't teach you, such as how to file your taxes, what is tax deductible, how to file for employment between gigs. Because it took me 10 years of being in this profession, and I didn't even know I could file for unemployment. And it was a friend of mine who was far more advanced in her career, and she's like, "Oh, so you just booked this Bank of America commercial. You made this big chunk. You're getting unemployment in between now, right?" And I was like, "No. It's a modest amount, but
it's anything
every little bit helps." Exactly. I think what I wasn't prepared for was the long-term sustaining yourself as a business, a small business. That's what you are. You're your own CEO. You're your own secretary. You're doing the mailings. You're writing the checks. You're writing the thank you cards. You're doing everything to keep your own business afloat. And medical insurance, how to qualify for that. I mean, of course, you can call the union reps. There's the resources you can Google. You can go ahead and do it if you really, but actors, I have to say, in general, unless it's laid out in front of you and it's like, take this class, sit down, we can be a little bit of it's not artsy, so I'm not bothered. But you need it, because at the end of the day, it's not predictable. The work doesn't come on a certain, the checks are not. Of course, there's your residuals and stuff. There's some sort of royalties and stuff, some sort of payment that comes through. But you have to learn how to sustain yourself and be more practical.
Self-sufficient.
And the part, exactly. And that's the part that they don't teach us. They kind of are like, "Oh, you'll figure it out. If you're in it long enough, you'll get a business manager or something."
And do you feel like, with the experience you've had now in Hollywood, I've just been dying to say that, in Hollywood.
Literally, I am in Hollywood. So
yeah, you're allowed to say it. You're allowed to live it and breathe it. I can just say it and take enjoyment in that. I'm going to live vicariously through you, 100%. Do you feel like there was a benefit, or what do you feel, if any, what benefit there was for you going to school to study it? Because nowadays with social media, there is TikTok and there is Instagram, and people are becoming influencers overnight. What are your thoughts on that?
More power to them to be so self-sufficient and innovative and creative. However, I think you cannot take away from training, actual real training in the classics, because at the end of the day, some of the biggest gigs that I've booked, multicam, for example, The Big Bang Theory.
Excuse me, are you Rajesh?
Oh, yes, you must be Lakshmi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
These are my friends. This is Bernadette.
Hello.
And this is Howard. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Please, have a seat.
My goodness, that was delicious. I bet our parents are dying to know how things are going here.
Well, let's see. Yup, 3 missed calls.
4 missed calls, 2 text messages, and a failed video chat. I win. So, what are we going to tell them?
I'd like to tell them things are going well.
Me too. But before we get their hopes up, we should probably make sure we're on the same page.
Okay. What page are you on?
I'm on the one where I'm under a lot of pressure from my parents to get married and settle down and have a family.
You know, it's all about scripted dialogue. They don't want you going one word off of that script because there's a writer that's getting paid a whole lot of money that's his baby. And it's like, no, I don't need you to think that you are funnier than me. They outlines, they say 5 different versions, and they say that's the one that got the laughs. That's the one you're going to have to say. And you learn to do that at a theater school. You learn with a director, you learn with a stage manager, you do it over and over in front of a live studio audience. You get rid of that stage fright. You get, into, oh, they're laughing way longer than I thought. I got to hold it. I can't say my next line. If not, they'll miss that line. So the kind of training and foundation that you get from a theater school and from a real program, I think that's priceless. And you can always, make your own videos after you get trained and this and that. And then it only will make you more desirable. But casting directors can tell from the first 5 seconds of you speaking if you actually had real training or not. It's kind of like an opera singer singing or someone who just has a nice voice. They can tell, and there's a big difference in that quality. And I think that's why British actors and, Australian actors are always kind of rising to the top and competing with Americans and doing American accents and stuff better than Americans is because it's training. It's just foundation and the Greeks and Shakespeare and the classics. And if you can do that, then you can do anything, So I would say get that foundation. You can take classes. It doesn't have to be a degree, but really invest in the craft and learning because it's so competitive, and any edge that you can get. That's part of why I went back recently and I looked at all these monologues that I did in college. I had a folder of all the monologues I worked on at 17, 18, 19. And I said, let me do them now as someone much older. And what has life taught me? What do I, because when you're kind of younger, you think you have it all figured out. You're like, I understand. I can do heartbreak. I can do all these. But when you have some real years under you, it's different. So yes, you learn when you're younger. But I think with time, going back to old classics, you really realize the weight of things that you may have missed and how they never get old. They only get more layered and more nuanced. So yeah, and you make friends. And I think that's important too, the contacts that you make in drama school and things, because people that were, sitting next to me for 4 years are now Tony Award winners, Emmy nominees and this and that. And if you have a genuine good connection with people and you've established genuine artistry and things, you can call someone up like you and me. You can call someone up or email them no matter what. Hey, I have something I want to ask you. And it has to be the right time, this and that. And people will say yes and sure, come on board, or, this is my advice, because that's what true connections and contacts are. And it's so important.
Do you feel like networking ultimately is what gets you where you are, or is it you really have to just be good at what you do? Because I think there's an impression on the outside that really it's like a small clique, and it's really only those select few that get us to a certain level of success. I would like to believe in it, maybe naively, but in an ideal world, that ultimately if you have the talent and the grit, that you can still make it through. What do you think about that?
Great question. And I think it's a little of both, it's a little of all of it. It's talent meets preparation, meets opportunity, meets who you know. Because, It's happened where I've been up for the lead on a TV show, and it's come down to me and one other person, and the other person got it. And then, the writer has called me the next day and say, hey, listen, I thought you were better. I liked you, but, they've worked with a producer before. They know each other. So they were going with her. It was almost a formality to even have the audition. And it's heartbreaking because
that
you're
is.
you're hearing that you were the better actor.
Yeah.
And yet that doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So, however, there might be a time where you are the friend of the producer and they might say, hey, I don't know this other person's work, but I can vouch for Chriselle. She's reliable. She's, great on set. And then you may get a job, just an offer without even having to audition for it. And I'm getting to that point now after 20 some years in the industry, where I am starting to get the offers and just getting the emails saying, hey, we'd like to offer you this, or you think you'd be great for it, or so-and-so recommended you. And, but it takes time to get to that point. You have to pay your dues. And
I need to know if he's in comp theory. I'm sorry, but we're not allowed to give out students' class schedules.
What if he's not a student? I don't need a schedule. I just need to know that he actually goes here. Please.
My last boyfriend told me his dad invented the battery. I'm sorry. There's no record of a Scott Adler in our system.
As somebody who is South Asian, we usually have the stereotypical career paths, doctor, lawyer, and so forth. And clearly, you nor I have taken either one of those traditional career paths. So what would you say to young minds or young students who would consider it, but would say, oh, my parents wouldn't let me, or like, it's just not, it's unstable, or it's just too much competition. What would you say to those kids?
I mean, see, all that is true. Okay. It is very competitive. It is difficult. However, I think if you have a calling, a deep, nagging voice that's pulling you towards something artistic or creative or different than whatever that 9-to-5 sort of traditional career. Yeah, you can't kind of escape it. It'll keep looping you back in. And I think better to live with the disappointment of the dream not coming true than living with the regret of not trying at all, So I think it's always better to say, let me go for it. And then once I do, I'll say, oh, all right, you know what? Okay, it was really kind of hard. I couldn't cut it, or, all right, I got my fill. I fulfilled the itch. Or you'll fall into something a little different. If you're not an actor, you'll be a casting director. Maybe you'll be an editor. Maybe you'll be like in sound, or you'll do set work or whatever. There are more stable creative paths, but definitely try. And also in general, the casting opportunities are just so much more abundant than it was when I started. We have Never Have I Ever. We've got.
I prayed for her every day. I said, no matter why you have chosen to curse them, please cure her as a reward for my virtue.
Thank you. I'm sure it was your prayers that did it.
Mindy Kaling is producing all these projects now where there are roles for 19, 20-year-olds that were not there before. Instead of the stereotypical roles are being eliminated, or rather not as much. It's not just the doctors. It's not.
So look, no pressure here, Doc, but we are scheduled to get married in 16 minutes.
Yeah, I'm afraid she can't walk down the aisle for 4 to 6 weeks.
And so now is the time. Now, granted, because more people are getting involved, the competition will be more. Right. So, I used to go out and it was me against the same 2-3 girls. And it was like one of the 3 of us are getting it. If it's the British role, the British girl will get it. If it's the role of like the model type, the 5'9" girl was going to get it. Like, it was very basic. Now it's more competitive, but that's okay in a way. It's kind of the price you pay for more roles. But I would always say go for it and then follow that through and see where it leads you.
What do you think is the downside if people don't listen to that nagging voice in their head to follow their passion?
Well, I personally, luckily, haven't experienced that, but I speak to friends now who I had acting classes with in high school and stuff, and a few of them that had wanted to be actors, and they listened to their parents who said, it's such a difficult profession. Don't bother. And in fact, they even say to me, you know, we thought you were crazy that you wanted to do this. And we were like, oh, she's going to give up, or she's going to, like, you know, have to move back in with her parents or whatever it was. And they have deep, deep regret now. Like they say, you know, perhaps I could have, and I really wish I had. Now, who knows? Perhaps they would have tried it and it wouldn't have worked out and they would have been right back where they are. But as I said, that regret of not trying, I think, eats at you. So always go for it, I think.
So when you look back to when you started this journey and as you continue this journey, what is something that you were surprised by?
Well, you know, I think when you're young, you have a lot of optimism. You're very almost naive. You think that when you book your first big exciting thing, that's it. That's it now. I made it. I booked a small role in Sex and the City 2 years ago.
I see. Care for another round, ladies? Hanji. It means yes.
I got to work with all the ladies, and I was like, wait, great, now Hollywood is calling. I'll be in like a lead thing, and then crickets. Then you go a year or two with nothing, and then you're like, oh, well, that was kind of a false start. Then again, same with Big Bang. I thought, okay, now I'm just gonna get offers. Like, now I did a big guest star role. That means it's just gonna open doors, and then again, nothing. So there's no proper guarantee like in a regular field. If you book one big kind of promotion or something, then that means you just keep going up, or the money keeps coming, or there's some sort of logic to the progression. But with this, you spike and then you kind of fall, and that's the part that's really frustrating, is that there's no consistency or guarantee. And I've gotten to a point now where I know that one big hit does not necessarily mean some sort of guaranteed progression. And I always tell myself, all right, well, let's see what happens next year. I'm not holding my breath. In fact, I tell myself, this is it then. This is I'm not going to get anything now for 2 years. You got to save the money you make from one project. And if you have that attitude, it's a little better, because then if something else happens, great, but better to be.
So it's almost teaching you to like live in the moment and just appreciate the moment for what it is.
Yeah, that's true. It kind of does. And it's not easy. I mean, you have a lot of dark thoughts. There is a lot of comparison. You look at your timeline on your Facebook and Instagram, and all your friends are, on red carpets. And if you're doing something right, your friends are going to be very successful. That means you're sort of in good company. But there's also that feeling of, oh, why not me? We all started together. I did the same training. So why can't I be there yet?
So how do you work through that? Because I think that's a very important, especially, I know it's not quite the same thing, especially right now for students who are coming out of, we hope, coming out of a pandemic, but we still have students that are quarantining. We have, active shooter threats happening. We have a shortage of teachers, a shortage of stuff. It's a very crazy time in education. And we can see the mental health impact on our students. We can see that more so than we have previously. So to teach them grit, to teach them how to, deal with things emotionally, to deal with rejection, to deal with social media being thrown at them in a way that even you and I would not be able to perceive, because we at least had a childhood without it. They have not seen life without social media. So it's almost like ingrained in them to compare, and how many likes do I have? And then how can that filter into your psyche? I imagine it has to. So how do you in Hollywood, how do you deal with that? How do you learn to just know who you are?
It's definitely not easy. And it's such a great question. Truth is, social media is not really real. I have so many of my girlfriends say, they post this perfect picture of the family all smiling. And they'll say to me, you should have seen, someone was screaming before, we spilled coffee, someone threw up. And then, you don't post those moments, you absolutely don't. But even though we know it logically, it's still so difficult to remind ourselves when we look at just that perfection. So if we as adults that have all this information are still fooled and still go down that rabbit hole, I can't imagine how much more tough it is for kids to process that. I would say you need to take some social media breaks. Sometimes I'll delete the app, like for like a day or two. Like I'll just take it off so I'm not tempted to look at it. So silly. There were all these Diwali parties this year where like Mindy Kaling and Lily Singh and all these people had like fantastic parties with all these Indian celebrities. And like there's a part of me that I felt like, oh, I wish I could go. And I felt like this unpopular kid at high school. So silly because
silly.
You know, they really are not my friends or anything, you know, but there's this sense of feeling like you are not good enough or you're not worthy or that you don't know if you weren't part of it, if you didn't reach that level. And I just had to tell myself, you know, what I have is enough. Like having my own good group of friends, my own like ride or dies that we might just go for a hike, or we may not be doing anything glamorous, but what we have is so real and it's connected and it's meaningful. And so I think if the kids can just remember, you don't need a lot of people in your life. You just need a few really good influences and like people that are there for you through thick or thin. That's all you need. And this glamour and all this stuff, again, most of it is just fake. It's all like a smoke screen.
Like, what do you do to learn who you are?
I think it comes down to the self-worth piece, you know, and I think that it takes time because in the beginning, you do need validation from the outside world, whether it be a critics on, you know, or whether it's how many likes, those comments of positive feedback, or just having something to post, like something to say, like, you know, and I find myself saving things for when I'm feeling down. Like, so if I've had an assignment, I don't always post it as soon as it happens. This is a trick I've learned. So if I just shot something for Walmart, for example, I didn't do it right when it happened because I was already riding a high from another gig that I posted. But I said, you know what, I'm going to save this for a day that I'm not feeling great or that everyone's doing so much. And when I'm feeling like a little down, I'm going to post that on that day and then feel like that little boost. And I know it's kind of like not really defeating the problem. It's really just kind of finding a way to manage. It's also like a PR thing. It's like, you know, it's all right. I'm being my own. Like, no, let's space it out. You don't want to post 5 things in one day and then have nothing happen for 3 months, you know? So, but that I found has given me a way to say, you don't have to post things in real time. You can wait for when you are feeling like a little low and then say, oh, you know, that picture I took 4 weeks ago, I look good there. I'm going to post that and just kind of give myself a little, like, you know, give myself a little boost. Yeah. And it seems to be working because then you get sort of like that little validation that you're looking for, and then it sends you into the next few weeks, you know. So you kind of have to like learn to play little games and tricks with yourself that
and figure out what works for you, basically. Do you feel like the stereotypes that are out there about, you know, actors and actresses in Hollywood regarding needing validation and wanting attention and self-esteem, do you feel like those things are true?
Unfortunately, I would say to a certain extent, they really can be. We do live with this audience, you know, there is an audience kind of feel. I think all of us do now with our phones being, you know, the way we live. We just all want to kind of be liked, I think, and want to get that little pat on the back that you're doing good. And I mean, I don't know. And I think that's
I want you to know that I like you and you're doing really well.
I like you as well. I think you're so wonderful. I always have.
Thank you. Right back at you. So tell me about one of your favorite projects that you've done.
This is not a very glamorous or one that, you know, it's very low key, but it's a theater thing I did. One of the only theater things I did in LA. I've did so much theater in New York, and then in LA, it all became film and TV. But one of the only things I did, it was called 50 Shades of Shakespeare. And we took the famous scenes from Shakespeare, and it was only 4 actors, and we all had to learn all these parts, men, women, we learned everything. And at the beginning of the night, when the audience came in, the audience drew names, and you found out the role you were going to play right then and there. Wow. And one night you got to be a female, could be Othello or Macbeth, and you know, so and then go. It was like So it was like improv meets Shakespeare, and it was so challenging, but also so satisfying. And you had to have this like laser focus. And I just got to act all these different roles that I ordinarily never would have with other, actors. And it was, sometimes two women were playing two men's parts, or it was just so fascinating. And I really felt like it upped my game, and it put me in like a different level of creativity. And then I felt like it really helped me get better as an actor on TV, because some shows, like Shonda Rhimes, like all of her Grey's Anatomy, and all
your husband down to the gift shop. He fainted last time we talked about needles.
Oh, he's such a lightweight.
Jacqueline wore a line, 23 weeks along. Recent fetal echo of her baby's heart unfortunately confirmed critical aortic stenosis.
Your BP's a little high. You feeling okay?
I'm a little nervous. The idea of a giant needle going through me and then my baby's teeny heart, there doesn't seem to be much room for error.
Jacqueline, I'm not even going to insert the needle until I'm sure your baby's in the precise position. Position is critical to success.
The dialogue is so fast, and you get one day before with the script, and you have to go in there and just, blur it all out.
Sorry. All part of life's rich tapestry.
Welcome to the art of self-promotion.
Thanks. Andrew Feldman.
And you, Donna Marcus.
Wow, that's a firm handshake.
Thank you.
What are some tips that you have for students? What is your writing process?
I'm one of those people that it kind of comes to me. A script I wrote, a feature film called Double Wedding. It's a romantic comedy, a female buddy com. I got to the part, which is the dark night of the soul, which is like the, sort of like the breakup, the sad part, and then everyone makes up at the end. But when I hit that point, I was like, it emotionally affected me so much, because I am such an actor still, that I couldn't continue through. So I took months on end where I just sat with it. And only when something turned in my own life, or I'm not quite sure, I was like, I know the way over this hill now. I know the solution. I felt the resolution. Then I was able to write the last 20 pages of the script, so it's different for everyone. There are very structured writers, and you'll have to find whatever it is for you. And your students, they'll know which one they are. Are they the planner, structured, or are they more that organic, feel it as you go? And you have to listen to it. You can't get influenced that someone else wrote it in a month. And, you can try and do it in that structured way. But if it doesn't come that way, I think it's okay too. It takes time. I think writing takes way longer, unfortunately.
I think everything takes so much more time. I think patience is just such a skill that needs to be practiced.
And it's okay. I think it's okay to let something be and then come back to it. I think it's okay to have a few pots boiling at the same time and just moving them around. And if you're feeling like, the suspense plot is the one I'm feeling now, go to that. Okay, now I've hit a dead end with that. Go back to the comedy, whatever it might be.
Yeah. What are some stereotypes about Hollywood that you can debunk for us?
Let's see.
Or confirm.
Debunk. I know it's almost easier to confirm. I realized that a lot of casting directors start out being actors. So that's what I said earlier. If you can't be an actor, you might get into something else that's just as exciting and interesting. But that's kind of why some of them are so charming and wonderful, because they're like, I got you, I'm an actor too. But then sometimes they're a little bitter that they didn't make it themselves. And then they're almost like, let's see what you got, So I've noticed I either bond very deeply with some casting directors, and some I find extremely intimidating. And then so it's the ones that I've connected with that I go back to a lot, and they're the ones I book with. And then the big one that I would say is incredibly true is the whole be nice to the assistant. That assistant one day is going to be the CEO the other day. I have definitely found that to be true, where I've seen assistants become agents, like so go from being the ones that are just like, can I get you coffee, to saying yes or no for, are we going to take you on? Are we going to pass on you? Yeah. So that comes back to the whole be nice to everyone, and genuinely connect with people, be respectful, because it's a very tight, small knit group of people, and your name will get around, and people do remember you, and reputations do kind of, even if they don't cast you, they remember your good work, or if you had an attitude or whatever it might be. So Just show
That's
up.
important. When you were coming up in the business, from what you're explaining, it seems like there were not as many people of color, particularly South Asians, and now it seems to be, more and more common, which is fantastic.
Yes,
so what was your experience like? Did you encounter a lot of like racism? Did you encounter like assumptions about you? What was your experience like?
It was never so blatantly awful to a point where, I'd have to file some kind of report or anything.
Right.
But I think there were little things, and the main difference is the Indian accent was sort of the punchline. Like, just do it in an Indian accent, and that's what's funny.
Right.
And that's kind of hurtful, because our accent should not be what's funny. It should be the content of what's being said, But now it's at a point where, and I myself, when working with actors in readings of my own scripts, even if the Indian actor probably would have had an accent because it was an immigrant dad or something, if my actor doesn't have that accent, I'll just say to them, you know what, do it in your American accent. Just do it in what's comfortable for you. Yeah. Because if the writing is funny enough, it should get a laugh, whether it's said in this typical accent or if it's said in your regular accent, and they're like, oh, thank you. Because, I'm being asked so many times to do the Indian accent, and I don't do it, and it doesn't feel genuine. Yeah. I think that's a big progression now, is that we're not just like, oh, just do accent, so that's kind of nice. And I would say that in the beginning, there was not as much solidarity in the Indian community. There was the scarcity mentality of there's just such few roles. So, it's like you're literally taking food off my plate. So I'm going to fight you for it. And there was this sense of like, oh, don't give anyone any tips. Don't be helpful. Don't, just be very like closed off. But now it's at a point where we've opened it up, and now I have a group of Indian girlfriends who are also actors, and we'll be like, hey, listen, did you see the casting for such and such? You should apply. You'd be great for this.
I love that.
Yeah. So
lifting each other up.
It's wonderful, but it's taken us so much time to get to this point where we don't feel like you're taking it away from me. Now it's like, may the best woman win. Whoever's right for the role will get it. So we can all go in for it. And if I'll get the next one. If you're busy on set, you can't audition for the next one anyway. So then, I'll get the next one. So it's now we're at that point where it doesn't feel as competitive or cutthroat. Now it feels more collaborative, and it's like, if you win, I win. Like if you get ahead, you're gonna take me with you. You'll recommend me if you're in that position of power at some point.
I think it's so incredible. I don't know if you even recognize this about yourself, but the role that you've played in getting us here. Aww. Just by being present, just by being in Hollywood, just by showing up to your auditions, you've helped us get here. And I hope that you realize that.
I don't realize it sometimes, when you're in the mix. that's really that's a great way to look at it. And I need to remember that more often, because I started out when there were not very many people doing this. There was a very small bunch of us, and I was very tenacious about it. I was like, that's all right. Let's carve this path. Let's break that ceiling. Let's really go for it. And of course, I'd like to be further along in my career. It would be great to be breaking more barriers, but I think it's a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. It's this long distance. It's like this investment that you're making for an entire lifetime. It's not like and
enjoying that process. And I bet there's so many people that feel that way about wherever they are in life. Like, oh, I wish I was here in my life or there in my life. It's just the nature of being human, I think, feeling like that.
And we keep moving the goalpost, and it's good and bad, because then you don't get complacent. You don't just get, oh, I'm good now. It's always like, well, what's next? We keep pushing and moving forward, and it's kept me like hungry.
What's your dream role?
Dream role. I would love to be in a show that's kind of like a great Game of Thrones or something. It's so well written and delivered, where it's old school medieval clothes, like something where being ethnic doesn't matter. It's about this like deeper thing. I really want to get away from the stereotypical, Indian arranged marriagey kind of like. all that stuff is really very not interesting to me. Like I want something with more substance, something outside the box. And I see it now. I do see casting with so many, like The Witcher has an Indian woman in it, and then the Wheel of Time has, you know, an Indian woman in it, and it's just wonderful to see casting that's sort of more colorblind, which is the way.
I'm all set up to film my daughter's fake 4th birthday party, and all that's missing are the 4-year-olds you promised. Oh, they're napping. Oh, in that case, wake them up! Sorry, princess, this party's turned into a nightmare. The toddlers are late, the pony's a donkey, and the magician quit.
I don't care if anyone shows up. My rate's the same whether kids peek on me or not.
Lovely.
On TV. So I know it's a possibility. I know that it is happening, and it's very exciting, and it's motivating to me. And so I think, you know, you just gotta stick with it. It's one day you're up, one day you're down, and you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. So
if you had to say teach 3 lessons to students who are interested in becoming actors and actresses, what would you tell them as far as the business of Hollywood? What are 3 areas you think that they should focus on?
I would say you do need to have a day job or some sort of consistent income that comes through no matter what. It can be connected to being creative, but it most probably will be, you know, some people do the restaurant work or whatever. I have found myself in a position where I run a doggy daycare. Now I can write while I watch them. I'm my own boss. I can still go to auditions. So I found something that worked for me, and it's a consistent, I've got my clients, you know, so it's like a dependable income that's fun, easy. I would say to them, find something that you like and love that's consistent. And then you don't have to worry, because when you're stressing about money, you're not able to be as present in the moment. You know, you go into this audition, you're like, I have to book it, or if not, I can't pay my rent. And that they can sense that like desperation, and it's not it's a pretty picture. So that would be the number one thing, is find a day job that, you know, that you like and is wonderful. And then I would say that you have to learn to budget and keep things, keep your expenses lower than your income. Sometimes you get a spike, you know, sometimes you get a national commercial. All of a sudden you've got like $40,000 in the bank, and you're like, woohoo, I'm awesome. And like, you know, don't go buy that new car. Don't, you know, go buy your designer clothes. It's as tempting as that might be. You've got to almost pretend that money doesn't exist. It's not there. Exactly. You know, so you put it away. Or if you want to invest it in something, you know, like, I don't know, like a house or something, if you want to do something that it can have some returns for you. Because I've had managers tell me, I have clients that got this huge chunk of money, and within a year it's gone, and it's disappeared. And like, to me, that's heartbreaking. And now again, maybe it's, you know, my dad is in finance, you know, my grandpa's a banker, and I think I got some very good lessons
advice too. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, if you can be good with money and smart and live within your means, live under your means, that will serve you really well, because you need to be able to tuck something away for rainy days, because those rainy days come, you know. And then the third lesson, I would say, if you are going to invest, you know, invest in acting classes, invest in learning a new skill, because sometimes you may just spend $100 to learn how to do graphic design. But now you can do your own website. Now you can make your own postcard. So if you are to invest in something modestly that's going to have a huge benefit, and perhaps then you do websites for other people, and then, you know, you're making a little extra money then with that. So if you are going to invest in a skill, that's a great idea if it's going to have benefits for the long term. So that would be a big thing that would be helpful. And you can just read books online, take out books from the library. You know, there's so many resources now. Look at YouTube videos. Sometimes you don't even need to invest any money to learn those new skills and to improve yourself and up your own, you know, skills on your resume. It would be a busy thing that would be helpful. And you can just read books online, take out books from the library. You know, there's so many resources now. Look at YouTube videos. Sometimes you don't even need to invest any money to learn those new skills and to improve yourself and up your own, skills on your resume, etc.
I want to take this class.
It can be beneficial to anyone.
I'm not even trying to be in Hollywood. I want to take this class.
Exactly. So you teach reading and writing to 5th grade or so?
Yes, 5th graders.
I would just say that, I've heard someone say, write what you know, but the hard part is knowing what you know. You're young, you don't realize that what you have, what your experience is even special,
Exactly.
Like, you think, oh, everyone can just be like, oh, I'm an immigrant from India and I wanted to be an actor. That sounds so boring. Like, why would anyone care about that? And then you realize, no, it's actually quite special. Whatever it is that you're one of 3 children, you're like, oh, but there's so many. But, find what still makes you, that you have a turtle as a pet. Why is that special? But, you have to delve into finding what's special in what you might think is the mundane. And finding the beauty and the joy, or the angle of coming at it from like a slightly different point of view or whatnot.
Yes.
So that sounds like so much fun to teach and to inspire these young minds.
I do love it. I think everybody should teach. I just got to a stage where I'm like, well, what do I want to do now? Not because I want to stop teaching. I don't think as you said, that's like in my bones, but it was more, okay, how do I broaden the conversation? Because I feel so blessed, and it's been very inspiring for me. So I would just hope to expand that.
They are so lucky to have you, because as you said, just to be a role model, as a woman of color, to be that for young girls, especially, I find that very moving, to just by being present, just by you showing up, by you being with them, like, putting yourself together just so, it is. I remember when I was young, like looking up to some teachers, some people that I'm still in touch with, some of them, and how moving that was, and not even realizing how inspirational they were in that time, and what role, you really play.
I appreciate that.
Encourage them. Yeah. So go us.
Yes. Let's pat ourselves on the back.
There we go. We did well.
I think we did. I look forward to hearing more about your future projects, and as always, please keep in touch. Thank you for doing this.
Good luck with all of it. And if you ever wanted me to actually talk to your kids on Zoom or something, I've done that with some
Okay, cool. I'll definitely. I'll definitely talk to them.
And we still look pretty much the same, I'd like to say as well. So why not? Yes, you're looking.
Let's do a hair flip. Ready? We'll do a hair flip.
1, 2, and 3.
That's my audition. I'm good?
You're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah, you're wonderful.
I'm in the Hollywood Club
You're
officially.
hired.
Thank you, Chriselle. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome, Karen. Wonderful seeing you. We'll be in touch.
Bye.
Okay. Take care, sweetie. Bye.